Well, the opposition leader has revealed that he'd only stand under the Australian flag if elected Prime Minister, saying that the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags stoke division. Have a look.
We're a country united under one flag, and if we're asking people to identify with different flags, no other country does that, and we are dividing our country unnecessarily. Now, we should have respect for the Indigenous flag and the Torres Strait Islander flag, but they are not our national flags. And I think the Prime Minister sends a very confusing message.
Anthony Albanese quietly made the change to install all three flags behind him for official press conferences when he became the PM. For their take, let's bring in Daily Telegraph journalist James Willis. Good morning. What do you think of this decision?
I think it's a metaphor for the situation where people are frozen at the moment and not quite sure about how we should be acknowledging the First Nations people. I think the Prime Minister tried to do the right thing and say, OK, we're going to have three flags here and acknowledge the Indigenous people and the Torres Strait Islander people appropriately. But ultimately, we want to be one nation. We want to be united under one flag. Peter Dutton's made the point that this doesn't happen in other countries and therefore it shouldn't happen here. But the wider issue as well is how, on a daily basis, we acknowledge Indigenous people. Jacinta Price, the Senator, has made the point that we're doing the welcome to country is too overexposed. I think everyone knows in their workplace now we're not quite sure how we should be doing this on a daily basis. So there's so much confusion in this space and ultimately it's not leading to people closing the gap. So it's a worthy debate, I think, at this point in time.
And you know what? Everyone's too scared to say the wrong thing.
That's right.
And get cancelled.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So on the flags, we have flags on the Harbour Bridge. We have the Indigenous flag everywhere. He says it's divisive having another flag. Do you think it is?
I think a lot of people think it is. It's not something that I get fired up about when I see press conferences. I'm normally getting fired up about what's coming out of the Prime Minister's mouth rather than what is behind him. But look, I would prefer to be under one flag, and I don't think it is the kind of thing that is going to make significant change, and I think a lot of people don't like it. So I can understand where Peter Dutton is coming from, but you're right. Like, whether it's in a workplace, whether it's at a community event, people are really frozen in what to do in acknowledging Indigenous people. So we've got an issue here, there's no clarity, and as I say, ultimately it's not leading to us doing what we're trying to do, which is to close the gap.
Yeah, exactly. If you're Indigenous, tell us what you think. Is it divisive or is it inclusive having the Indigenous flag behind our Prime Minister when he or she speaks? Moving on, the Prime Minister has defended his decision to play tennis in Western Australia instead of visiting the site of the Melbourne terror attack on a synagogue. James, the opposition says this is Mr Albanese's ScoMo bushfires moment. Is it like that?
Well, I heard the Prime Minister speak yesterday and he said, look, I had 6 meetings on Saturday and then I had to do some exercise, so I played tennis. And in his mind, he's done nothing wrong. But ultimately, Albo's been around for a long time. He knows how politics works. When you're in the highest office in Australia, every decision you make is going to be judged. And when there's been a terror attack at a religious institution a few days before, something like this is going to be very damaging for you. Now, look, I can completely understand, and I think sometimes we're too hard on our politicians, but politics is a very dirty game, and stuff like this is always going to come back to bite you. I think on a couple of these issues recently, including the $4.3 million house that he bought a few months ago, the Prime Minister's been terribly advised, and the people around him should be saying, Albo, this is damaging with the electorate. You need to start waking up. And this is another example of that, where he's just completely misread the room.
Okay, he went to the house was one thing, right? But he went to a bunch of events. One of them was a bar mitzvah, a Jewish event. So in the midst of that, he goes out and plays tennis. Someone catches a shot of him, like a bad shot of him, playing tennis. Is that really something that he shouldn't be able to do in another state?
I think if you thought about it out loud and thought, what are the positives and negatives of being shot in this situation, I think there's more downside for him here. I completely understand, and I think often we're too hard on our politicians that want to have a holiday or play sport or whatever else.
This was a work day, though.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there was more to go wrong for him here than there was to go right, and he needs to understand that when you are PM, something like this is always going to come out. I also just think on these things, the Prime Minister has had a really very weak glass jaw. He hasn't been able to take criticism. And for someone that always claims to be a working class person that grew up in Housing Commission, sometimes he just appears to be completely out of touch. And this is a good example of that, where he's just tone deaf.
OK, finally, Blacktown City Council has announced a major change to their citizenship ceremonies, with those assembled asked to chant our unofficial national anthem, Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. Do you think this is more like our national anthem, James?
I love it. And Blacktown is one of the most diverse communities, LGAs, in the country, and for them to be getting involved in this is fantastic. Look, I'd like to see it added to the end of our national anthem every time it gets performed. I think, well, it does most of the time anyway at sporting events, but well done to them. It looks like they're doing what we should be doing, and that is having a bit of mix and having a bit of fun on Australia Day rather than talking about changing the day altogether. So they're also embracing the Indigenous community, which is fantastic, and I think what they're doing should be an example for everyone to follow rather than cancelling the day altogether.
It's cute, isn't it? Thank you, James.
Thank you.